adventure. You will be tested.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
So styles tends to not only separate man, because they have their own doctrines, and then the doctrine became the gospel truth, that you cannot change, But if you do not have styles, if you just say, well, here I am, as a human being, how can I express myself totally and completely?
I think all our society is run by insane people for insane objectives. If anybody can put on paper what our government and the American government, etc., and the Russian, Chinese, what they are actually trying to do, and what they think they're doing, I'd be very pleased to know what they think they're doing. I think they're all insane, but I'm liable to be put away as insane for expressing that. That's what's insane about it.
Evil contains within it the seeds of its own destruction. Watch that experience. Watch what happens to a person who's evil and ruthless and negative. Just observe it. And you'll notice that this is in fact the case. And it's certainly the case up the front. Evil contains within it the seed of its own destruction. The moment that you take that kind of anti-human negative stance, you're just waving a red flag to nature, go come and get me. Which is exactly what's happening now. It's called the age of revealing and the age of awakening.
Hello everyone, great to be with you once again. Here on Truth Frequency Radio. And it is Monday, September 16th, and my name is David Whitehead, your host, and I'm honored and happy to be here with you. And tonight, I am extremely honored to have on the show a long-time teacher and mentor of mine personally, someone I've learned a great deal from, someone who's inspired me to be here doing a show exactly like this, and who has contributed greatly to the cause of freedom, the dissemination of truth and reason. And of course, that man is none other than Max Igan. And I first started getting into Max's work a number of years ago by checking out a few of his documentary films, which you can get online. They just blew my mind, the information, but also the way that he delivered the information. I've always greatly resonated with that, and I've always had a lot of respect for what he does. And then I discovered his radio show and also his website, which is thecrowhouse.com. So you can go ahead and check that out if you're unfamiliar with Max's work, although I don't believe on this network Max really needs any introduction. And so it's with great honor and a privilege that I'm going to be bringing on Max Igan. So Max, thank you so much for taking this time with us, and welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, David. Thanks for asking me on.
Oh, yeah. Well, I definitely wanted to have you, of all people, on the show tonight because of the amount of things that are taking place around us. And we recently, of course, had the 12th anniversary of September 11th. And I don't know, I didn't find that it was just a coincidence that this was the time that we had all these war drums beating for a further, assault in the Middle East, and talking about Syria. And of course, we were just coming off Libya and a lot of other disasters that are taking place over there. And of course, all justified by trying to hide behind this whole thing about preventing terrorism and shutting down these regimes that are corrupt. And it's always flying the flag of peace, freedom, and saving people that can't save themselves, etc. And so we just kind of see more of the same. And there's so many other issues that we are facing. And I've just always found your work to be very different than the rest, where you not only bring up the problems, but you also are constantly trying to bring up the solutions and what we can do on an individual level and hopefully eventually on a collective level to get us out of this mess. So I'm very grateful that I'm able to have you on tonight. And maybe we can start off with sort of a recap for yourself on how you've seen, maybe starting with 9/11, just because we're so fresh off of it, is how it's progressed to this point. I mean, 12 years on, where do you think we stand in that regard, and what can we do to take it further from here?
Well, like 9/11 is really the most pivotal event in recent history on so many levels. And the whole police state and what you're talking about with Syria, I mean, all of this is a result of 9/11. 9/11 is the justification for all of this. It's the justification for endless war. It's the justification for a huge loss of rights. And the loss of rights that we're seeing around the planet at the moment is phenomenal. It's happening on all levels. Here in Australia, for example, using anti-terrorist legislation brought in because of 9/11, this legislation is now being used against people at coal seam gas rallies. You know, they're being using anti-terrorism laws against these people. Here you've got corporations coming in and raping the country, the water table. You know, they're destroying the water table. It's a crime to pollute groundwater, but here we have these corporations doing it. And if you attempt to stand up and stop them, you have police come in and use basically terrorist tactics against the public who are trying to protect their water from this corporate rape. And if the people try to stand up against the terrorist tactics used against them by police, then they get branded as terrorists themselves. This is how the legislation works, you know. And it's interesting. I mean, the police are acting like Gestapo, and all they're doing is defending corporate corruption. And this is happening within our countries, and meanwhile external from our countries, because like coal seam gas is happening in Canada, it's happening in America, in Australia, France, everywhere.
Yeah.
So this is the way they're doing it internally, using this anti-terrorist legislation against the people who are attempting to stop these sort of companies. And then externally, we see the rape of countries such as Afghanistan and then Iraq and then Egypt and Libya and now Syria, all as a result of 9/11. So it's a huge, huge event. And with what's been going on in Syria, I mean, it's just a joke. The world is really waking up to the fact that the United States government is a rogue government. I mean, essentially, the United States is a rogue state at this moment because it's run by a rogue government. And with what just happened in Syria, the whole how willing the United States was to go to war with Syria despite all of the evidence to the contrary. I mean, we had the US military even putting out reports saying that Al-Qaeda had produced sarin gas for the chemical attacks in Syria. We've got Turkey indicting 11 militants that were caught with sarin gas, Syrian militants. We have Russian people saying that they have proof that the chemical weapons were used by the opposition. We have proof that the rebels sought to buy materials for chemical weapons. We've got the United States admitting that they can't prove Assad used any chemical weapons, and yet we've got people like Carl Levin saying public opinion can't decide whether we should go in, and Barack Obama and John Kerry and all these people saying, yeah, we've got to go to war. But they're admitting they got no proof, and there's everybody else in the world is saying, hey, we've got evidence that it was all done by the rebels.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
it sort of shows that these guys, like, you know, the American institutions and the whole idea of what America is, that whole thing is completely gone, and it's a facade, right? Like they're basically just, it started with 9/11, but there's been subsequent events after that has brought all these different legislations in to oppress people at home, and then, of course, now that is oppressing people across the world. And it seems like most of the public, though, in America, they're just eating hook, line, and sinker what the mainstream media is telling them, and they're all thinking that, oh, whatever they tell us, they must have evidence that it's the Assad regime attacking its own people. And it just reminds us of the same script they used to go into Iraq with weapons of mass destruction. So it just kind of blows me away that they're still able to get away with the same playbook.
Well, it's the same playbook, absolutely, but it's all very, very theatrical. You see, it's so obvious to the rest of the world what America's doing.
Yeah.
And it's only the media that keeps the American people brainwashed to the extent that they are. But that's really all part of the plan, because they want to bring down America. The people that are doing this, they're making it so obvious because they need to bring down America. They need to show what happens if you allow a nation to be free. Because look at the American people. They're free, aren't they? And what have we got? We've got outrageous pornography. We've got outrageous exploitation. We've got all sorts of crime. We've got all sorts of things going on. And this is what happens when you give a nation freedom. And so that's why they've done it the way they have. That's why it's so obviously, it's so obvious to everybody, but it's not obvious to the American people. And this is all done by design. So you can see that it's a rogue state, and what it's doing is completely unacceptable. But they have to do it this way because it's about bringing down the American people. It's about bringing down America itself, because if they can bring down America, they can bring down freedom. because America is supposed to be free, isn't it? Remember, that's how they're running the whole thing. So it's all orchestrated. It really is.
Yeah.
And people do need to pay attention, and it's all a result of 9/11. So yeah, it is very significant that it's happening at this time.
Absolutely. And when I talk to people about this, and, I'm not the kind of person at all that's out there saying, oh, I've got all the answers, I know everything. I take time to notice. I listen to great radio shows. I go out and I read books and, book after book. I get out there and I'm just curious to know what's really going on. And so what I try to do is share with people some of the information that I've come across. And my research has led me to understand beyond a shadow of a doubt that absolutely what you're saying, Max, is correct, that it's not necessarily the country of America that is behind all of this, or with the people even with 9/11 that are saying it was the government that attacked its own people. Well, yeah, they were just the mechanism behind something that is much bigger than just what we think of as America. I mean, this is ultimately run out of, Europe, and we've got, all these different international globalist players that look at the world not in terms of countries and nation states. They look at it as a planet. They look at it as a resource to be plundered. And, at the end of the day, in their own writings and their own works, they say that human beings themselves are one of those resources. And so when people look around and they see all this horror and all of these things that are in the opposition of sustaining life and sustaining human life, then they can't understand it. And so they try to just justify it and rationalize it. But really, we need to understand that we're under attack as a planet, as a species. The planet itself is under attack, right?
Yeah, well, we are the ultimate resource. The ultimate resource is humanity. And everything, all the resources that we pull from the earth, these are only available because of the work of humanity. So people are the ultimate resource in all that we do. And as far as bringing down America and all of this goes, I mean, it's got to be seen to be that way. It's got to be seen that that's what happens when you give people freedom, because it's very important for the world to see this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of it is so staged. And again, you've got to look, when you look at the world, you can kind of view it as two corporate entities and hostile takeovers. That's kind of how it works with hostile takeovers. And if you can view America, view the whole Western mechanism as one corporate entity, sort of puppeteered by the Vatican and the Crown, and America is simply the military arm.
Yeah.
It's only an independent state in name, but it's puppeteered by Europe. It's puppeteered by the same banksters that puppeteer every country that's got a central bank. That's what it's all about. That's what this whole war on terror is all about. It's putting central banks everywhere, because that's how you control the country, is by control of the money system. So that's what America is. And when you're talking about the United States doing all of these terrible things, you've got to understand you're not talking about the people. You're not even really talking about the country. You're talking about the military arm of a global corporation. That's what it is, and that's what it's been set up to be. And it's going out there and it's stomping on the rest of the world and installing these central banks under the guise of bringing freedom to the people. And the American people, they've brainwashed them with this media machine, so the rest of the world can just look at them and go, look at these filthy, slimy Americans, look what they're doing. It's their fault. They're letting the government get away with it. But they don't know, because they're fed all of this tripe. They're just fed all this rubbish. They really don't know. If you go in there and see how brutalized these people are by their media, I mean, it's a wonder that anybody could survive this sort of mental abuse,
Oh, yeah. And you've brought up many times before how many times in history this has happened. And I think that's another good reference point for people, or anybody that is trying to get in there and figure this out, is that a lot of people in our modern society, I mean, I live in Canada, which is just another crown corporation here, just like Australia or anywhere else, really. But it's the same thing where people just observe this. They sit back and watch it, and they can't understand that this is just history repeating itself. And I kind of think back to all these previous empires, and how many of those people that were living in those empires, who were getting fed all this propaganda by their leaders, must have believed in what they were being told, and must have believed in the Nazi Party, and believed in the Communist Party, and believed in all these different red herrings, really. And it's the same thing that's happening in America. It's just there's something, it's like a deer in the headlights kind of situation, where even though I've talked to guys, they're history teachers. They should be able to see this before anybody else. And they're more blind in many cases than other people I've talked to. And so it just boggles my mind how people stare at it. It's like this train that's coming directly at them. And we've got all the signs there to warn us, but not very many people are jumping out of the way, sadly enough.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, and the problems are so huge, and that's a real issue because people just don't want to look at it. They don't want to know. They say, well, look, it might even be true what you're saying, but if it is, I don't want to know because I'm too busy. Yeah. They never think about that. Why are you busy? Why are you so busy? You know, your life is supposed to be about the art of existence. It's not about running on the treadmill so you can collect stuff. But you don't even really have much stuff, do you? Because you're so busy running on the treadmill just to pay bills, just to keep your head above water. Why is your life like that? Oh, because it just is. Yeah, but why is it? You know, It's by design. And we are running so hard and we're kept so squashed down and we're kept so emotionally squashed down as well. You know, we're really, really taught to suppress our emotions. Don't ever express your emotions. You don't ever express anger. Don't ever express sadness, you know. If, you know, you do anything like this, they try to get you a mental evaluation or something, a psych evaluation. I know he expressed emotions.
Yeah.
Quick, give him a tablet. You know, so you're completely squashed, and so you've got this real knot inside you, and you're competitive with everybody around you, and it's all by design. It keeps society divided. You know, if we could just put all that away and realise that there is nothing to compete about, what we're here to do is to experience the art of our own lives, each one of us, and each one of us is just as valuable as each other. If we can get back to that basic human understanding, there's the solution to the whole problem that we face, every single thing, because everything that is imposed upon us is a matrix. It's fiction. You know, government doesn't actually exist. It's just rules in a book. You know, we just believe what's in the book. We believe the book's real. These guys say, hey, you've got to do this because I wrote it down in a book. I made it up. I wrote it down in a book, but look, it's got a fancy letterhead on the page, so now you have to do that.
Yeah.
It's a slavery system. It's people farming. And they only get away with it, really, and all of these problems are perpetuated because the average people on this planet really don't know who and what they are. They don't know what the art of their life is. They go through their whole life running and running and running, trying to keep their head above water, and they're never able to discover themselves. And it's all done by design, and that's the big problem. You know, we only need government because of all the problems that the government creates for us. That's the thing. You know,
yeah, they are the problem and the solution, right, to their own problems. And you bring.
Well, you know, we are the solution. That's the thing. We are the solution. The solution to all the problems of the United States, the solution to the United States going and stomping on Syria and doing everything it's doing is for the American people to wake up and remember who and what they are, because they are the only people who can stop it, even though it's being puppeteered by European banking cartels. And the problem is that if they don't stop it, they're the ones who are going to cop all the flack while the leaders scurry off to their underground bases like the cockroaches that they are.
Oh, yeah. Well, they did it before with, again, going back to some history with Nazi Germany and the whole situation there where it was really Germany that just got defeated. And at the end of the day, the whole Nazi ideology, which goes back far earlier into history than just, the 1920s and 30s and 40s, that just escaped and was brought through, Vatican Rat Line, Operation Paperclip and all that, brought back in. So these ideologies that were alive and well back then are being brought back out again. And you actually hear a lot of, I find, especially with Obama regime and what they've been talking about, it's very much online with the whole communist agenda. And you kind of hear that, I guess, from the Democrats. It's sort of like the Democratic side is more of the communist sort of head, and then the Republican side sort of represents more of the Nazi ideology. But at the end of the day, it's just different ways of trying to convince people to follow the exact same agenda. It's just two different colored gloves on the same hands. And if we can understand that, and Max, you brought up such an interesting point about people getting back to knowing who and what they are. I agree with you. It's the number one thing that's blocking this progress. I mean, I live in Toronto, so it's a busy city. When you're driving around, there's people cutting you off, honking. It's very aggressive. It's very stressful, tense type of energy around here. And I just imagine, I'm like, that guy that was just flipping me off and he was all mad at me because, whatever, he wants to squeeze in or past me in his car. If I was at a barbecue on a Saturday afternoon with that guy and you take away all the stress and the tension that was there, we would probably end up having a great conversation. And so I always try to think of that when we look at the environment as being a major cause of what is keeping people so distracted from doing exactly what you were saying, was trying to connect with their fellow humanity, connect with nature, try to think of the big questions. Who are we? Where do we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? Most people can't think past, what they're going to pick up from the grocery store on the way home from work, right?
Well, yeah, and it's like that. And if you step back and look at society and you see just how fast everyone's racing around, and you think, well, where are you going? What are you doing? And they're really doing nothing. You look at these big office buildings, and there's just people running around in these buildings moving pieces of paper around the buildings. That's all they do is they move paper around. And now we move digital stuff around, and it doesn't mean anything. It's not real. It's not who you are.
And that's what they do, right? Like that's how they do it now. They don't just go on the battlefield with a big army and cross swords with the enemy. They can bomb them from sitting home in their living room using, remote controlled drones or whatever. And there's a disconnect from any kind of interaction. So it desensitizes everybody. So people can't even see the full scope and magnitude of what they're engaged in.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, society's running around really, really fast, and they're going nowhere. They don't know what they're doing, and they're missing out on themselves. That's the thing. That's the whole point of it. It's all about keeping people distracted. Everything about this society, it's all about distraction. And what they're distracting you from is yourself. And that's where the solution lies to all of the problems. I really think that what we're facing in the world today is a really huge opportunity for us to wake up to ourselves. But it's very difficult to get people to want to unite with anybody else because they're all in this constant state of competition. Yeah. It's very difficult to get people to put down their stuff, that they have with other people. There's lots of attempts to unite humanity, but, it's people's fear. People have a real fear of unity. And even with World War II, the way they set World War II up and the whole Nazi thing that you were talking about before, I mean, really what was happening there was like a beta test. They and I don't think all of the bad stuff that happened in World War II, I don't even think Hitler was involved in most of it. Yeah. I think that the Western Europeans and certain Western influences just went in there and they took control of the situation and they ran this whole test. He was as much a puppet as anybody else. Yeah. He wasn't necessarily the bad guy. It was the people that were puppeteering the whole thing, which was the banking cartels. Again, it's the same people. They just ran the test. Him, yeah. Well, yeah, they ran the test. They check out all this mind control, all these drugs, fluoride, all this stuff. Okay, this works, that works. And then after World War II, Germany copped the brunt of the whole thing. The people that ran the test all moved into America and South America and all over the place. And then they just did it to the whole world, the whole Western world. They got all of America brainwashed into all this and all of Australia and all the Western countries, introduced television, put all these toxins in the food, put all the fluoride in the water, did all the things that they did in Germany, worked with that country. Now we'll do it to the whole world. And that's what they've done. And this is what you get, and now they're going out and they're using this banking, this money system. And that's the thing with isms as well, communism, socialism, whatever, all of these isms that people get involved with. They never really think about commerce-ism, commercial-ism. What about that ism? Because that's the problem. The introduction of commerce over the human experience. Get rid of money. Get rid of all the isms, because isms are just isms. I mean, what is this stuff? Exactly. I'm not into isms. I'm not into isms. I'm just into freedom. If I'm into any ism, it's freeism. That's it. That's the only ism that I'm interested in. And the whole thing is about commerce, because commerce creates scarcity. And it's a really difficult thing for people to even consider a world without money. They go, oh, you're a communist, you're this, you're that. No, they don't get it. That this is a world of abundance, and because everything we do is designed to support this economic model, it prevents us from having that abundance because we're supporting the economy rather than ourselves, rather than the planet. We'll rape the planet in order to balance the books. But the books are fiction. They're just numbers on a screen. We'll keep going till we destroy the Earth and turn it into the moon. Then we'll look for another planet to rape because we still owe money to the bank. Yeah. That's the way this works, especially with this system that we've got, this capitalist system. Because in capitalism, you've got to have permanent growth, which means you've got to have permanent rape of the planet. You can't make things to last. They have to break so you can sell more. That's the way the system works. And if you're making things to break, then you're just harvesting minerals and resources from the planet and you're turning it into rubbish. That's all you're doing. So, we need to reevaluate the situation very much.
Oh, yeah, no, most definitely, Max. And I appreciate you bringing up the money system because, again, talking about, illusions and the idea of this matrix of control, this is probably the biggest mechanism that they have. And now that they want this global economic system, which they've pretty much got in place, they just haven't put a name on it per se publicly, but basically getting the entire planet to follow this capitalist agenda and eventually getting all of this money digitized to the point where now you can't even rely on cash or precious metals or any of that. That's all out the window. It is now just a digital currency, probably imprinted onto some app on your smartphone, which will eventually just be injected right into your arm or something. And I think they're already experimenting on this kind of stuff. And so when people sit back, I think maybe the question is that we have to sit back and think about what we actually value. What do we value? Do we value money, or do we value this planet and value the resources on this planet? And Max, we've only got a couple seconds to break there, but maybe when we get back, I'd really like to get into how this planet does have abundance. And there's a lot of people that actually believe the myth that, it's this, we don't have enough food, there's not enough water, the planet's dying. But the truth is that the planet itself is a living organism and it has everything that we need. So maybe we can get into that on the other side. Oh, and there's the music. So, folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on Truth Warrior. We're talking to Max Igan. We'll be back in a few minutes.
There's only one choice. To resist.
This is the Truth Frequency.
And welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Truth Warrior here on Truth Frequency Radio. I'm your host, David Whitehead, and it's an honor to be here tonight. My guest tonight is Max Igan, and in the first section, we were just breaking down a few of the different issues that this planet is currently facing and every living soul on this planet. And we are just talking about why we need to be basically paying more attention to what's going on and doing our due diligence to research this, to ask the big questions, and to get out there and to try to create positive change in our personal lives and around the world. And Max, before we signed off there for the break, we was just bringing up a point that I feel is out there. It's a big meme that's in our society today, and that is that there's not enough for everybody. This planet is not a planet of abundance. There are certain people on this planet that just, unfortunately can't eat, and we don't have enough to feed them. And the water isn't clean anymore, and there's just nothing but catastrophe. So we probably need to be, looking at something like depopulation or all these different extreme measures. And people are buying into this. They're believing it. When the truth is, as I see it, that this planet is a planet of abundance. There is enough to go around. It's just that we are being suffocated by this superimposed system of control that has been imposed on us. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, it's commerce is the problem, you see, because pollution and all the problems that we face, most pollution, if you really look at it, if you look at polluted rivers, why do chemical companies dump their stuff in the rivers? They do it because it's cost effective to do so. It's a lot, the fine that they might get for doing it will be far less than the money that they will save by polluting the environment. So it's a cost effective method.
Yeah.
And that's what most pollution is about. It's because people cut corners because it's cost effective to do so. And so why is it cost effective? It's because money exists. It's because commerce is been imposed over the experience of everything. So we create things to be cost effective, so therefore they're not particularly good. They're as good as money will let them be.
Yeah.
Well, why can't we fix Fukushima? Because it'll cost too much to fix it, even though it will destroy the planet if we leave it alone. It's not. How are we going to get the billions of dollars it will take? The only reason it's going to be so expensive is because money exists. Otherwise, we'd just do it. And the only reason people build inferior products or rape the planet at all is because it's cost effective to do so. So it's the imposition of money. The only reason things are getting so expensive is because money exists. And this is a really, really difficult thing for people to get their head around. The fact that everything on this planet, if we weren't enslaved to debt and we didn't have to do things in a cost-effective manner, if we could just build something because it was a good thing to do and we could build it in the way we like to and we could build it to last the way we used to do hundreds and hundreds of years ago, we'd build things to last. Look at all those old castles and look at some of the ancient Mayan ruins. I mean, this stuff's still there. Look at the pyramids.
Oh, exactly.
This stuff was built to last, you know.
Yeah.
We have the ability to do this if we were able to just live our life as the creative expression of our art, be born and to be allowed to discover reality for ourselves and see what we could make of that. And, you know, because we were living in virtually a living garden of this planet, you know, we would be incredibly different to what we are now, you know. But the thing is that we've had this system of commerce imposed over us, which has caused us to create this civilization, which is completely and utterly uncivilized and doesn't serve us in any way, shape or form. But, you know, you try to tell this to the average person on the street, they look at you like they want to call the men in white coats. They just can't imagine what life would be like without commerce. And this is a really, really difficult meme to break because it is this commerce which has created all the problems. Why are we going to war with Syria? Because there's all this stuff going on, because people are in this state of scarcity, so they're at each other's throats, they're kept emotionally repressed. But the only reason anybody is in a state of scarcity, they can't afford food, is because they need money to get that food that grows right there in that field, but you can't get it because it's there and someone's put a fence around that field because they believe they can own that part of the earth, even though they're only here for 50 years. The earth has been here for 4.6 billion. They literally believe that they can own a bit of it.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Because of commerce. It's all about commerce. See, that's the whole thing. And this is a very difficult meme to break because this is a world of abundance. It's a planet of abundance. And if we were simply left to our own devices to grow up into some sort of a community that served our needs, I really don't think we'd come up with this. So I really wonder where it came from. I wonder who came up with this. You know, is it simply a direct result of the imposition of an economic system over people? It quite possibly could be, because all of the wars and all of the hardship that we see, it's like we've created a system of trade whereby, and we've taught to exalt the system over the people that we created the system to serve. So it's kind of it's upside down from what it should be. But like I said, it's just a very difficult meme to break. That's the problem, really, is commerce.
It's almost like a religious type mindset, really, when you think about it. Even though most people wouldn't admit that they are part of a religious ideology, the mind and the brainwaves fire at the same frequency when, you know, you're in that state of mind where you believe blindly what you're being told, that this is what's going to save you. This capitalistic model, this financial device that we've given you, somebody gave it to you. It was here before you got here, and somebody made it up and made up the rules that go along with it. Somebody benefits, you know, from the fact that you buy into it. So it is it's very much like a religion. Would you agree?
Well, it's interesting. It's almost like a religion, but it's almost as well. It's like they almost superimpose another sense over your five senses. You know what I mean? Because people that live in a commercial reality, people that live in Western society that are used to buying things, buying their house, going to the shop and buying their food, paying for the bus, doing all this stuff, they can't imagine how you could possibly have any type of civilization at all were it not for money. Mm-hmm. They simply, and once this becomes part of their psyche, it isn't like a religion, because it isn't something that they worship, it isn't something that they think about. It's just there. It's like you don't think about breathing, you don't think about seeing, you don't think about hearing, you just do it. And you don't think about spending money, you just do it, because money's how we do it. It's
well,
part
education
of our reality.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's a weird thing, and yet if you look at you look at a tribe living in a natural environment somewhere in the forest, they're living in a pristine environment. Everybody's perfectly healthy. They live in a state of complete abundance. They might have to deal with a flood coming through now and then, but they've got their traditional things they do when that all happens. Everything's good. But then you impose commerce over them, and suddenly they can't live in those trees because they don't own that land. They can't buy the material they need to build their stuff that they used to just go and pick, but they can't now because someone put a fence around that because he believes he can own that bit. And all this sort of stuff goes on. And this is what they've done. They've just imposed this commercial system over everybody. You look at all the pirates that went out from the East India Trading Company, went out to colonize the world. They went out and they found these tribal cultures. They decimated the cultures and they imposed a commercial system over them to put them in a state of scarcity. And this is the way they created the third world. They raped all of these countries. They took all the resources to build the first world, and they turned the third world into the third world. We created the third world by the creation of the first world. And we imposed this commercial system over them, which placed them into scarcity. And now we've built the world up to the point where people are completely disconnected from each other. Our family units have broken down. Our relationships have broken down. We've turned sex into lust. We've turned everything into social status, and it's what you look like, and it's all this, and who you hang with, and who's the coolest, and all of this ridiculous stuff that's superimposed over us. We've exalted the youth and cast the old people out. And in normal societies, the old people are honoured. The youth learn from the old people. All of our society is about the exaltation of youth, if you look at the pop culture.
Yeah.
So they've turned everything on its head. And while they've done that, they've created utter poverty in the third world. But these people are still very connected with their family units. So now what they do is they start giving these people in the third world cheap technology, mobile phones, iPads, this sort of stuff. You go to the Philippines, you have a family virtually starving, but they'll have the latest mobile phone because it's really cheap. And they'll judge you by your mobile phone. You go there and they'll say, hey, what sort of phone you got? It's one of the first things they'll ask you. They want to see your phone. If you've got some old phone, they look at you and go, oh, look at mine, you know. It's
really,
like,
wow.
This new, because it's quite cheap over there.
Yeah.
And they start, here's the toys. And these people in the third world, they only see the first world from what they see on the movies. And they go, wow, we could live like that. So now what they do is they transfer wealth from the first world into the third world. Because the first world's, we got the first world so dependent on economics now, and we can keep raking up the system, keep sending more wars, more hardship. These people are so dependent on money. They so believe that the commercial system is real. You can get an office worker, he'll go work the mines to feed his family if he has to, because he's so dependent upon this system. And so now we can reduce the first world to the fourth world. These people will work as abject slave if we want them to, and we can transfer all that wealth into the third world. And now that when they get all of this stuff, then we can introduce all the pornography and the stuff that we did to the first world, and within 2 generations, they'll be completely disconnected from each other, completely lost. And then we can start working on what tribal cultures are still left in the forest. And then we've disconnected the entire population of this planet from the planet. And that's what it's all about. That's why what I want to do later this year with the Full Circle project I want to launch. I actually want to go to Peru and I want to create a documentary to launch the Full Circle project next year, is to try to help people understand the need to reconnect to this planet, because this is what they're doing. They're disconnecting people from the earth, disconnecting people from their family units, breaking down the family units, just disconnecting everybody from each other through money and technology. That's how they're doing it. They're sort of shifting the wealth around the planet to do it. So that's how the commercial system works, really.
Wow, that's excellent. So maybe tell us a little bit more about the Full Circle project. You're going up to Peru. I'd had a trip planned to go to Peru this year, but unfortunately I was unable to make that trip, and I was hoping to eventually get up there. I've studied it. I've looked at it. I've always had an interest to go and wanted to go and check it out, but just never had the means to get out there. So that's excellent that you're going to be starting there. Are you going to be doing a sort of a tour, or maybe you can explain a little bit more about that?
Well, what it's all about, I mean, it's cost me an arm and a leg, actually. It's like virtually everything that I've got to be able to go and do this. So I'm going there for 3 weeks of filming, because, and I want to talk about coal seam gas mining. I want to talk about the destruction of the Amazon. I want to talk about reconnecting to the planet. Lots of things to do with Western society, but it's very difficult to make something like that in Australia here. And when I was in Peru last year is where I got kind of the download to do this. I had this whole experience happen to me there, and
wow.
I just believed that I had to come back there and make a documentary. So I've kind of been scrimping and saving, and I've got it worked out so I can go there for 3 weeks to make this documentary, because Peru is a place that everybody on Earth can identify with. Peru has a magic about it, the Mayan ruins. There's a lot of stuff going on in Peru. And if I can go anywhere to demonstrate this connection that does exist to the Earth, it's Peru. So I know I have to go there and do it. It was just something that I had. It was an experience I had when I was there. And I actually had an experience a couple of weeks ago, which was profound here. I had an apparition appear. It's quite out there, really. But it was a real confirmation that I had to go there and make this documentary. So I plan to do that in November. And I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to go there, do 3 weeks of filming, and then come back here and probably edit it until probably January or something like that, and hopefully have it released by mid-January. And I want to get the word out and use it to launch the Full Circle Project. The Full Circle Project, I want to start doing a series of workshops, get as many people involved as I can, and help people understand the need to reconnect to the planet, start maybe perhaps tree planting things wherever we go as well, where we're planting indigenous trees and indigenous plants, and featuring local culture and local music and local art, and also trying to find ways of liaising with local government while we're there, local mayors, teaching people how to talk to these people, talking to these local political figures about trust and all this sort of stuff, and just trying to help people have a different approach to authority. You know what I mean? And not doing it through the mechanism of confronting the police, but doing it through the mechanism of confronting the politicians and quite forcefully, I might add, kindly, but very directly. And putting it back into trust and saying, well, look, this is what's going on. This is the state of the planet, and we, the people, are remembering who we are, and we're remembering that you're our employees. And you can't honestly think that we're going to let you destroy the planet simply because you wrote these rules in a book, because that's ridiculous. If you actually think we're going to do that, I mean, and that's something that people have to think about as well. That's the problem, is we believe what's written in the book. We let these politicians do what they want to do, and we let these corporations destroy the planet around us, and we let this police state march forward and march over us, and we go, oh, they've just made it a law that you can't do that. Well, how is it a law? It's only a law because someone wrote it down in a book. They made it up, wrote it down, and said, now you can't do that. That's exactly. Human trafficking. That's slavery. That's people farming. Yeah. And that's what these, like I said earlier, if you look at the world, if you look at the East and the West, you kind of look at it as two corporate entities. It's like two big department stores with different arms, and the stock is the people. It's people farming, human trafficking. That's what this system is, and that's what the commercial system's all about, because the commercial system enslaves you to debt, puts you in a state of scarcity whereby you have to do what the system says, or else you get cast out in the cold and you die. It's putting you in a position where you have to pay to be alive. That is the problem, And you don't have to do this until you leave home. You're under your parents' wing until you leave home. And because they're kept in such a state of scarcity, they want to throw the kids out as quickly as possible. You get out there and make your own way. I can't afford to keep you. So this breaks up the family unit. It's the commercial system that breaks up the family unit. It's the commercial system itself. And then the kids can't wait for the parents to die so they can get the parents' stuff. Oh, my mum, my dad, what an asshole. He went out and partied. All that stuff that he collected, all those millions of dollars he collected, that was mine. That should have been mine. But he went out and he partied for the last 10 years of his life, and he blew my inheritance. They actually say that. They're down on their parents because their parents dared to spend all the stuff that they collected with their sweat and blood over their lives. And the parents want to do it because they don't want to leave anything to the kids, because the kids are so ungrateful, because it's all to do with this system of commerce. Yeah. A whole lot. That is the problem. But then you try to tell people, what about life without commerce? And they can't even imagine what it would be like. So like I said, it's almost like a new sense that's been imposed over our mind. It's mind control. It's mental slavery. It's absolute mind control. Fear-based mind control. That's what the commercial system is.
Absolutely. Very well said. And also another aspect that gets thrown into there, bringing up the youth and the parent and the division of the family. You have the media constantly injecting these ideas, like you were bringing up earlier about how we're focusing on this youth-obsessed culture, this narcissistic, sociopathic type mentality that is actually worshipped in our modern society now. And these celebrities, whether they be from sports or from the movies or from, the music or whatever, they're all marching to the same drum and especially appealing to the younger audiences. And I actually work with children at my martial arts school. That's where I teach. It's my other profession. And I try to do what I can to help get these kids active and give them some confidence and get them empowered and get them thinking for themselves, learn how to defend themselves and learn how to just have an overall positive mindset. And it's just incredible to see how much these young kids, 9, 10 years old, are just completely sucked into their iPhones and what's going on in the media. And school is a totally different ballgame now than it was even when I was in school. And so there's a whole element of, again, ripping the children away from the family unit, from any kind of idea that supports the planet. Like if you talk about planting trees, most kids today, that's not cool. What are you, like some kind of hippie or something? They don't understand the necessity. And so it's the media is another huge element to all of this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the exaltation of youth is a huge part of it. It's all about the beauty. It's sex and beauty, all of it. And when you really look at the beautiful people that are up there all the time, this is a very, very short period of your life. As soon as like young girls come into puberty, they start discovering their own sexuality. They really exploit that moment. It's all about that. They go, wow, now I'm a woman. And they think they have to be like Beyonce or Britney Spears or whatever, and they're given these role models, and then suddenly they get to a certain point in life and they go, hang on, that was all a complete distraction. I'm just here. I'm not this beautiful young Barbie doll now, and I haven't really discovered myself. And they start getting lines and wrinkles on their face, and they think it's all over for them. When really it's not supposed to be like that. Your life, like they say, life begins at 40, because it takes 40 years before you really figure out what's going on. Yeah. So it's this whole exaltation of youth is a huge part of breaking down the family culture. That's what they have to do, so that and it also causes them, they don't listen to their parents, and their parents usually are just depressed anyway, because they're living in a society where it's all about being young and beautiful. So as soon as you get past that stage, because they never discovered themselves, because they grew up in that society that taught them that it was all about being young and beautiful. So now they're old, they're just going, oh, wow, I never really made it, did I? I didn't know how to exploit mankind enough. I didn't know how to exploit others. I should have been harder in business. I should have been more sociopathic. I would have had more stuff. Yeah. I would have been me because I would have had more stuff. But hang on, they never really discovered themselves. They missed out on themselves because it was all about the stuff, and it was all about what they thought they should be according to the parameters that this society gave them, which are complete fiction. So you can see how insidious it is. And it is a very difficult meme to break, because we've got all of this technology in the schools now. We've got it all leading towards transhumanism. And it's very, very scary where we're going. But, again, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to see it, and it's an opportunity for us to hopefully let people know. If we can communicate the information to people in a clear and eloquent enough way, then, I do think we've got a hope of pulling ourselves out of this. And I'm really urging people to get involved on the shows lately. I really think that we are making a difference too, just because of the amount of division. There's a lot of infiltrators in the movement now. There's a lot of people trying to create arguments and fights and undermine everything. So I think we're making a difference. I think we are. I think there's a huge effort to undermine alternate researchers at the moment. So that's kind of a positive sign as well in many ways.
Yeah, that's interesting. It is a positive sign, because if they're actually going out of their way to try to infiltrate these movements, the only reason they would do that is because they were posing some kind of a threat to begin with, right? So they've got, and I was going to actually ask you about this. You've been in this alternative research field for a lot longer than I have, and I've noticed that there's just an unbelievable amount of infighting and bickering and gossip, and it's just a lot of time wasting, really, and people arguing over what they think about the minute detail about this particular subject or whatever. And it's starting to get on my nerves, because the whole point here is to look at this objectively and to allow people to bring different elements into this, because we're all kind of like detectives on this case that we're trying to figure out what's going on and put these pieces together. I mean, even just looking back at some of these different school shootings and what was going on with that, and there was all these signs that, of course, this was another setup and another media type experiment, if you think about it. But then there's all this fighting between people within the community trying to alert the general public, who are just sucking in what the mainstream media is telling them about these things. And then because of all that fighting and division, their average person is just like, well, these guys are just crazy. All they're doing is fighting amongst themselves anyways. Nobody knows what's going on. So the whole thing, it's just crazy. So then they don't even look at it. So I find that that's kind of a major detriment to this movement overall. What would you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. I think all of these things are symptoms, and I think that they're all done just to keep the infighting going on. That's what it's all about. And I mentioned on the last show that I said, as a species, humanity is effectively sailing off the cliff. And while this is going on, we're sitting here, rather than grabbing the rudder and steering us back to safe waters, we're arguing about who strung the rigging, And we need to pay attention to what's going on, because we're heading off a cliff. And if we don't put our stuff down and start to respect each other and stand as one species to make this a better world, then we're going to deserve what we get.
Yeah.
And I think that this is an opportunity to do that. I think that's the biggest problem that we face, is a lack of respect for each other. But this lack of respect, again, comes from this system of commerce, because we don't respect each other because we judge each other by the stuff that we own. We judge each other by our social standing, by what he looks like, or what his political views are, and all this sort of stuff, which is all to do with, what are your political views? Well, it's who's going to let you be in a position where you can get more stuff, isn't it? That's who you're going to vote for. It's all about stuff. It always comes back to commerce, I want more money, so I can have more stuff. Whoever gives me more money, so I've got more stuff, that's who I want in power, because if I've got more stuff, I'm a better person, because it's all about the stuff, And so I don't respect you because I've got more stuff than you. I've got a bigger front door than you, so I'm a better person than you. And it's fiction. It's fiction, and we don't respect each other. That's the problem, You've got a different view to me. I don't respect you, and because you have a different view to me, you must be an agent. He's an agent, folks. He's a New World Order. He's
That's right.
Because, this is what they do.
Yeah.
If you don't agree with me 100%, then you're an agent, because it's my way or the highway. I'm the only one who has the answer, even though I don't know what the solutions are, And this is the way it is. This is what the truth movement's become. And I even get attacked. They say, Max, you don't know the solutions. What are your solutions? And I say, well, the solutions are for you to know who you are. Because I can't have the solutions for you. I can't have the solutions to the problems on this planet myself, because I'm only one man. And I do not know what lies within the hearts and minds of every man, woman, and child on this planet. Only they know that. And only when they can learn to respect each other can we all stand together and move in a better direction where we can experience the art of our own lives. Because that's what we're here to do. But we're led away from that by this commercial system. So, all I can do, to me, the solution is for me to let people know about this. Let people at least be in a position where they can consider the possibility of what I'm saying to be true. Just offer that perspective to them. That's all I have, is my perspective. And that's
Absolutely. Well, Max, your perspective has definitely influenced me positively, so I definitely thank you for that. Folks, we're going to be heading into the second hour after this short break, so please don't go anywhere. You're listening to Truth Warrior. We're here with Max Igan. We'll be right back. And we're back, folks. Welcome to hour number 2 of my very exceptional conversation with Max Igan. I'm very much enjoying this, and I think that what we're discussing here in the first hour, if you hadn't heard it, is definitely extremely valuable information. So once the show is completed, if you want to go back and revisit any part of the show, I highly recommend you take it, you download it, and spread it far and wide. Go to check out Max's work at thecrowhouse.com, and I also want to strongly urge people to go to his video link. And if you go to his website, right on the page, you can hit video, and he's got all of his documentary films listed there. And the most recent one that he did was one that I found to be just absolutely mind-blowing and very, very good and well-done information that was presented there. And that is, of course, called Transformation. And the word trance is not spelled as it normally would be. It is, of course, trance, and talking about the fact that we are all in a trance. It's a certain mindset that we've been convinced into taking on board. And because of that, we are seeing nothing but the denigration of our society, and we're seeing everything move forward faster and faster towards utter chaos. And there are unfortunately people on this planet who just so happen to gravitate to the top of this pyramid who like insanity, who like chaos, because out of that kind of an environment, they can easily get what they want. They can get the control that they want. They can get the resources that they want. We were talking briefly about the monetary system and money. And a lot of people, when they look at this agenda, or they look at what's going on in the world, they tend to stick to the whole surface level of this, and they look at it and they say, oh, these corporations are just doing it because of the money. It's all about the money. And of course, that's a mechanism that's involved to keep, the lower levels working hard at continuing this. But at the end of the day, money is a means to an end. It's a means of accomplishing a goal. And because it's been something that's been superimposed over top of the natural order on the planet, and instead of having real currency, which is commerce between human beings on an energy level, on a sort of almost a psychic level, where you have a connection with somebody and you are trading a good or a service in all fairness and for the betterment of both people involved, what they want to do is have something that cuts in the middle of that, becomes the middleman, and of course ends up putting both people out of business, out of luck, and at each other's throats. So when we sit back and we see this going on, we need to not be afraid of it, not sit there and think that it's hopeless, and we have to take positive action against it. And I've often talked about that, and it aligns with my views on sort of the history of where I come from, which is from studying the warrior tradition and ancient philosophy and whatnot. And I've always seen it as not that we need to have some kind of revolution of arms, we need to storm the castle or anything like that, but we need to take positive action and to get out there and just things like this show, set up a YouTube channel, set up a Facebook account, talk to your neighbors, get to know your neighbors, get out into your community, talk to these local politicians, even if some of them are, scumbags and they're not going to listen to you, talk to them as human beings and get out there and take positive action. And so, we have Max Igan here with us, and I'm very honored. And Max, maybe we could continue to break down for people what you see as being positive action and some of the suggestions you might have for people that want to help. I think there's a lot of good people out there. They want to help. They want to assist. They see what's going on, but they might not quite know what to do. So maybe some of your suggestions on that.
Well, look, getting to know your neighbours is always a good start. Community gardens, if there's a community garden anywhere, get involved in one. If there isn't one, then start one. Get an organic garden growing, get your hands in the earth and get your neighbours involved, get people involved. You'll get to meet people in your community, good people, because it's the good people who want to come and join in with the garden, things like that. I run the Crow House, and I've removed all commerce from the Crow House. All the films I make, I give. All the radio shows I do, I give. Everything I've done on the Crow House, I've done for free, because I believe that giving is one of the greatest things you can do. Giving is one of the most rewarding things you can do. And people, unfortunately, are in a state of fear because they're kept in a state of scarcity, and they're very often afraid to give. And I think giving comes very natural to us. When we're kids, we give a lot, but we're taught not to. We're taught that everything has value, and we need to put a monetary value on anything. Again, commerce, it prevents us from being able to give. Because, I'd like to give to you, but I may put myself in scarcity down the track if I give to you, So it impedes our ability to be able to give naturally, and I think that's a huge thing. So I think giving to people is a great thing to do. And just get involved. Get involved in your community. And do it not because you want a reward. Do it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And when you approach people and interact with people, treat people as yourself. Don't be better than them or less than them. Be yourself. Be in Lakesh with everybody that you meet and everybody that you deal with. And whether they've got a uniform on or not, still view them as yourself. Even if you're dealing with someone with authority, you might say, he's the mayor, he's Mr. Such and Such. Ask him what his first name is and call him by that.
Mm.
Yeah. And it'll throw them off guard. It always does. They like you to call them by their title. But if you call them by their first name, it usually disarms people, so you can talk to them on a more human level. And, one of the biggest problems that we face, and people will call me whatever ism they want for this, or ist, a socialist or a communist or whatever, but, one of the biggest problems that we've got really is ownership, the perceived ownership of this planet.
Yeah.
People really, really seriously believe that they can own part of the earth. They believe countries are real. Countries are just lines on a map. Someone gave it a name and they put a fence up. It's ridiculous. Now, I believe that there's really only one species on this planet, and the only reason we even have countries is because we're greedily hoarding our stuff because of the introduction of commerce over our psyche. Again, it comes back to commerce, all of this stuff. So, I mean, people say, oh, he's saying that he wants open borders. I don't want open borders. I want mankind to remember who and what they are and to live as a united species, expressing the art of themselves on this beautiful planet that we inhabit. I don't see how countries and this society or civilization or borders or any of this stuff, I don't see how any of it serves us. I don't see how anyone even worrying about their race. People say, oh, no, we need to preserve the white race. I go, why? Why don't we all breed together? I don't care. I don't care what colour anybody is. If you particularly like a particular colour, that's great, but don't hate the other guys. If you want to preserve that colour, fine, breed with people that colour. I don't care. It doesn't matter. But don't see something as a threat to you. Why would you be in fear of the destruction of the white race? Why is that an issue for you? Your infinite consciousness, having an experience, are you going to live your life having the experience of the destruction of anyone who has the same skin colour as you? Why? Why would you do that? What sort of an insecurity is there in you that you would choose to make that your life experience? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's a strange thing. I mean, I can understand. Yeah, hey, we want to preserve our culture and all this. I mean, I can see it. I can understand it. But I think people put too much emphasis on all of this sort of stuff. I think that each individual on this planet is ultimately connected to everything that is, but is still ultimately unique in their perspective and their experience in this creation. So I think we are connected and we're all separate at the same time, sort of thing, if you really want to look at it that way. And we have to be in order for the experience to exist, to happen. But I think we can do far better than what we're doing if we just put all our stuff down. So it's this ownership and all of this sort of stuff that we've got, which always comes back to commerce, the whole thing. So where did this come from? Where did this whole commercial system come from? What's this all about? Because that's what this whole Western meme is doing, is going out and imposing commerce over the world and moving the wealth around the planet and disconnecting everybody. As I explained earlier in the show, that's how it's done, through the transference of wealth everywhere. Sparkly jewels. The mobile phones they're giving to the Filipinos and the people in the jungle, it's the same as the beads they gave to the Indians when they bought Manhattan,
Oh yeah, and they did the same with the. I think it was back when Obama he gave a bunch of cell phones to people that were in poverty in America, and they had all these people on YouTube, I got the Obama phone and all that kind of stuff, and they throw these little trinkets and these little toys at people, and even if you look at it on a bigger or on a different scale, even people who are perceived to be wealthy and well established, and they've got everything that you would ever want. They're just being thrown these big toys and these big distractions as well, because once again, this is all manufactured. This is all a synthetic and superimposed environment in which we live, and we're putting so much stock into that we're forgetting about, like what you said, we're forgetting about who we are, we're forgetting about our purpose on this planet, and in our absence, the planet is suffering. I mean, we have these things like Fukushima. I don't think people quite understand how incredibly important this is. This, to me, when I've been looking at this since it happened, and actually, Max, I've been following your work on it as well, and many others, trying to get as many perspectives on it as I can. I've even talked to people that have lived in the area, and they share some things with me, and it's just absolutely incredible that people are more concerned with Miley Cyrus twerking all over the internet, all over, all these different videos and whatnot, than they are about the fact that we've got tons and tons of radioactive material being poured into the oceans, poisoning our food supply, destroying the planet. I mean, where is everybody? I mean, what are we going to do about this? We really got to start thinking about this, right?
Well, obviously the best option in that regard is to go and bomb Syria.
Yeah. Oh my God! It
seems that's what the governments think anyway.
Let's go drop more bombs.
I mean, Fukushima is a huge issue, but it's not going to kill the planet. The planet's not going anywhere. The trees and a lot of stuff, they don't mind radioactivity. It might damage a lot of the marine life, and we won't be here anymore. But the planet will be fine. The planet will just move into the next stage of its existence, which will be the radioactive stage. The trees and plants will probably turn into something incredible like we see in Avatar, you know. Mm. But there just won't be much biological life. So it's not going to kill the planet. It's going to kill us. Yeah. So, you know.
There's got to be, but there's got to be some kind of survival mechanism left. Do you think that's kind of part of this whole thing with having people's attention focused so much on this daily minutia and all this stuff that really doesn't matter, to the point where they can't even react properly? There is no survival mechanism really left in them because they're in that trance like we were talking about.
Well, you've got a society that's basically in a state of collective hypnosis and collective insanity. I mean, it's an insane society. It's forced to operate within sociopathic and psychopathic parameters. You know, you're thrown into this psychopathic reality and you're told to make it work. And when you see how brainwashed people are, and like we say, it's all about the exaltation of youth. So it's youth really who run the planet. And the youth of today are more interested in their cell phones and iPods than anything else. And when they become successful, in inverted commas, they either become a pop star, or they become an up-and-coming business executive, or they get thrown on the trash heap, you know. So a housewife or a whore, you know, because that's the way this society is structured, you know. And I'm not saying that either of them are the trash heap, but you know what I'm saying. If you're going to be successful in this society, either you've got to be a pop star or an up-and-coming businesswoman. Even people would see the concept of being a mother as being a chore. They want to get a maid. They don't want to be around the kids. It's all about their social life, you know. So it's just a complete mess up what we've got with Western society. So when you really look at it like that, you know, I don't know how we're going to get out of it, you know.
Yeah. Well, I guess unless more people are going to come on board with what you're talking about in terms of becoming more community-oriented again, and at least just shifting the focus. Because if we understand that we are actually creating this prison, I mean, that's how powerful we are. If people want to think that they're disempowered, just look at the world as it is and don't feel like you're a victim. We're all a player, the way I see it. There is manipulation at the highest levels, absolutely. There are people that benefit from this situation, the commerce, the destruction, and the control and the wars and everything. There are people that benefit from that. But at the same time, because of our apathy, because of our unconscious state, we are in that way creating it. And that's where people maybe can find some hope, is that if we shift the focus, then we could be creating a totally different reality.
Well, it's our training, and like I said, it's our training. They just don't want to look. You know, they're too caught up in this whole other thing. You know? Either they're going to be successful or they're not, and so they're not interested. Because if you're a young successful businesswoman, or even if you're a housewife, or if you're involved in the pop industry, you don't want to look at all that. The guys that do nuclear stuff will look at that. You know what I mean? So. And even if they do, what are they going to do? But the thing is, I mean, I don't know why anybody would continue functioning in their business or anything. I don't know why any of these major corporations would want to continue functioning without stopping and saying, hey, we've got to address this problem. Now, why don't they? Well, it's because it's a psychopathic society. You know, that's the way it operates. Like I said, I don't know what we're going to do because people are so caught up in this whole system that, you know, they're just not looking. And the planet isn't going to die. Like I said, it's not going to die. It's biological life that's going to be very, very altered by this. Again, is it part of the plan? Is it part of the whole transhumanist agenda? Because, I mean, even where it is, even where Fukushima's been put, why would you even put all those nuclear reactors there? It's on the corner of, you know, 4 tectonic plates.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an accident waiting to happen.
Wasn't it Westinghouse
talking about? Yeah, Westinghouse and GE reactors. I think there's a typhoon about to hit, or is just hitting, or something there as well. If that gets another storm go through there, this could all go into the ocean. And what can you do? What can you do with Fukushima? But why aren't all the governments of the world, the greatest minds of the planet, all looking at this and saying, you know, we have to fix this problem because this is a potential extinction level event.
Yeah,
you know, for biological life. Yeah, if this keeps going, which it will, I mean, what are they going to do with it? You know.
But then now, like you said, they're going to war now instead.
Yeah, but what do you do with it? What do you do with Fukushima?
Yeah.
You know, because you can't pour concrete on it. You can't. It's right there next to the ocean. It's 50 meters or something from the ocean. So you can't go underneath it and contain it. You can't do what they did at Chernobyl, and it's much, much bigger than Chernobyl. So yeah, it's really the elephant in the room, isn't it?
Do you think this was a manipulated event, Max, or at least a partially manipulated event that maybe got farther out of control than whoever perpetrated it hoped, or do you think it was just a natural accident, or what are your thoughts on that?
Look, it's really hard to say. I mean, it's like it was a natural accident, but you know, there's all the Israeli people that were there beforehand. There was the new camera equipment that they put in there, which looked very, very bulky. And there seems to be Israeli security around where all these nuclear disasters happen. That's a funny thing. And like I said, I mean, where they put these reactors, well, it's a accident waiting to happen. Why would you put reactors there? I mean, if you actually did a graph and you got the planet and you laid it all out and you looked at all the tectonic activity on the planet and you figured out the worst place in the world to put a nuclear reactor, it would be Fukushima. So
yeah,
why were those reactors there? You know, if this wasn't planned, well, then I guess humanity just isn't anywhere near as intelligent as I thought they were. Because, I mean, yeah, why were they even there? That's the issue. Because it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, Japan's a very, very seismically active country, and it's the size of California or something, you know, and it's like 52 nuclear reactors there. It's ridiculous, a corner of 4 tectonic plates. So, yeah, I mean, the Japanese are lovely people. I think they just embraced Western technology. I think they trusted us. I think the Western interests that did it there, perhaps they just did it pure exploitation and didn't care. Yeah. So, oh, don't worry about it, we'll get our money and run. Perhaps it was as simple as that. Perhaps it was simply the result of a sociopath with you know, pathological mind who really didn't care. Or perhaps it was planned. I mean, you can't see a conspiracy in everything, but it really does beg the question.
Well, exactly. And when we do have these types of things going on, and you can just go back and track a lot of the top, you know, classes and these social engineers and read their works and read that when they talk about the way they view the world and the way they view life and the way they view humanity, it comes from a worldview that they hold, and it's as if they have their own religious mindset, and from that they are producing what they believe. They, you know, all psychopaths, all people that you might label insane or criminal or evil, they don't believe that their actions are such, or if they do, they believe they're justified by one mean or the other. So I think really at the end of the day, whether they did it on purpose or whether it was just a lack of awareness or whatever, either way, that evil was perpetrated, and unfortunately there are people who benefit from such things, and it's kind of scary to think about, but it's just the way things go. And you know, Max, you were also bringing up this idea of transhumanism, and I got a mixed bag of people listening tonight. We got some people that, of course, very seasoned, they know exactly what you're talking about, but I do have some people that would have never heard of that term before, and you bring that up in your film Transformation, which I recommend people check out. But maybe you could just briefly cover what transhumanism is and how you see it unfolding today.
Well, the merging of man with machine, and they do this by making it very attractive. You've noticed the the sexualization of technology. You've noticed how it's really pushed into pop culture. Everyone's got bits of metal hanging off them and, you know, metal headdresses, and we're seeing in movies now with, you know, digital readouts. The television show that's been on recently, Continuum, you know, the readouts, they're the chip in your head, so you got the readout in your eye and all this sort of stuff. And it's the merging of technology with the human experience and enhancements, they'll call it. And really what it's doing is, you know, if you can look at your body as a biological computer, it's really hardwiring a back door into your body. Basically, so you can communicate on the internet from in your head. And you'll see this now. There's even new games that you can put on a headset, and you can communicate telepathically with the Xbox or whatever machine it is that they're playing these things on.
Yeah,
I don't keep track of it, but I've seen these experiments where they're doing this. So it's the merging of man with machine. It's been made very attractive to people. People think it would be great to be enhanced. Oh, I'm so limited in what I can do now. But they don't realise that they're only limited by design. People don't realise how locked down they are through the toxins in the environment, through the fluoride in the water, and all of the things that they're subject to. You know, because we grow up with all this. When we're born, when we're kids, back in the stage sort of before we can remember, in inverted commas, way back, we were very online back then. But we're fed all of this stuff through our lives. So by the time we grow up into any awareness, we're very, very dumbed down. We're filled full of vaccines at a very early age. We're drinking fluoride as soon as we're born. We're being bathed in fluoride water and, you know, drinking fluoride water and all this sort of stuff. So, you know, we're very, very locked down by the time we grow up to be adults. So we're not experiencing all of reality. So they've locked us out of most of what we should be doing, locked us out of our higher senses. So now they're offering us a digital version of it all through implants and merging us with machines. And really, when you look at films such as Transcendent Man by Ray Kurzweil, he talks about transhumanism, he talks about merging man with machine. But if you kind of listen to the fine print of what he's saying, listen to the subtext, what he's really talking about is nanoparticulates, merging everything with nanoparticulates. So this transhumanism, this merging of man with machine, people would think of it as something like the Borg, turn the human race into the Borg. But what if they were going to do it from the inside out through nanotechnology? And that's what he talks about in the film. And he basically talks about sending nanotechnology infused with artificial intelligence out into space to harness and assimilate anything that it comes into contact with, to connect human consciousness all into one big singularity, and which means we would be all basically like the Borg, and we would be going out to assimilate the rest of the universe, because he believes that we are the center of the universe and that we will create God by merging ourselves with machine and doing it through nanotechnology. And if you really look around you in the world today, you can see that this is already happening. This is what a lot of the GM food is all about. I believe it's where the smart meters tie in. I think it all ties in together because your body is a biological computer that functions according to electromagnetic impulses. Everything you experience is electromagnetism. And this is where the wireless technology is being perfected as well, because you can be affected via wireless technology. Of course you can. You're an electromagnetic being. You are more an electrical being than you even are a biological being. I mean, your body's 85% water. Only 15% of your physical makeup, the chemicals there, even make up the rest of your biology. The rest of it's water. So where does your consciousness come from? It obviously doesn't exist within your body. Your body is simply a computer that downloads a frequency from the field around you. You download David Whitehead into that vehicle that David Whitehead inhabits for the experience. I download Max Igan into this vehicle, but ultimately exists in the field around us as an electromagnetic signal. That's why if you took an organ out of my body, put it in yours, you'd start experiencing me, because it starts downloading that frequency. That's how it works. That's literally how it works. Even according to mainstream science, that's how it works. And so, of course, this electromagnetic grid can affect you. They've just got to search and figure out the right frequencies. And if they can put nanotechnology within people that's tuned to certain frequencies, well, then they've got it, haven't they? They've got that back door straight into you. So this is what they're doing. And if you really start looking around you, if you go and watch that film, go and watch my film Transformation, and then just research the things that I mentioned in the film. But I warn you that it is quite unsettling. A lot of people have found the film to be very unsettling because this is happening around us right now.
Well, absolutely. And I actually think it's necessary that it's unsettling because, as we've been saying, that we have to start paying attention to these things no matter how unsettling they are. And that is the cue for the break, Max. So let's do one more segment after this break, folks. Don't go anywhere. We're here with Max Egan. And welcome back, everybody. You listen to Truth Warrior here on Truth Frequency Radio. And I'm here with my very special guest, Max Egan. We've been breaking down all kinds of different things for you to think about. And, of course, I always put out that disclaimer that we're not here to tell you what to think or what to believe. That's the mainstream media's job. We are here to introduce some information to you for you to go out and do your own research, to do your own introspection, meditation, and to ultimately start to figure out the answer to those questions for yourself. You know, who are you? Why are you here? What's going on around you? What kind of an awareness do you have of your surroundings? And of course, always looking towards trying to find some solutions. But as we were talking about, the biggest solution or the best solution that we can point to at this point is to take that internal journey, to remember who you are. It's probably the most powerful thing that I can say for myself has really changed my way of thinking. And a funny thing has happened is, as I've been studying these things that are deemed negative or, just people that are not able to comprehend what we're talking about, they won't understand that. But when I look into this stuff and I start going on this journey of exploration, not only in what's going on in the world around us, but also what's going on in my inner world, I've just noticed that I've started to create new friendships with people that I maybe wouldn't have in the past. And I've also noticed that old friendships kind of fall away. And it just seems like when you change the way you think, the way you operate, and what your goals are in life, you end up attracting those kinds of people to you, and you end up, sort of rinsing out people that might have been toxic in your life or may have been somehow just not aligning with your perspective, which is fine. Everybody's entitled to their perspective. But I've just found it's actually been creating a lot of synchronicity for me personally. And I encourage everybody to be open to that and to just try to pursue this higher path of learning and knowledge. And we've got Max here with us to explain his perspective and to share his journey with us. And Max, I was wondering if this last section we can discuss consciousness and discuss sort of some of the journeys that you've been on and what brought you into that particular way of looking at things, and maybe not just looking at, again, the surface level, but going on that inner journey and bringing that level to this. What was it that really woke you up to that element of this?
Well, it's been an ongoing thing, really. It's been seeing through the programming, understanding that it is all programming. Everything that we're facing really is programming. All the division is programming. We've lost ourselves. I was awake at a very early age, but I kind of stepped back into the system because I had to. Everybody had to. I mean, you didn't think there was another way. You're a child. I'm looking around when I'm a kid and I'm going, this is all messed up. I don't know how they think this could possibly work, but I guess I have to do it. So I tried to, but it didn't work at school. I didn't want to know what they were doing there. So I left that as quickly as possible and just became a musician and kind of numbed myself. And stepped out of society for a long time. And then I realised how serious it was getting, and so I figured I'd better step back in and start making some noise, because I could kind of see the mess for what it was. And it's been a whole thing. I mean, that was a real moment of spiritual growth, having the strength and the wherewithal to see that now is the time to step in. I should have stepped in earlier, but to just change that, change the lifestyle, and step into the role of speaking out about all this. And through that, it's been an ongoing process ever since I started. It's been further breaking down programs all the way. I mean, programs run deep in everybody. It's like I was saying earlier on with the loss of the divine feminine, how women are taught they have to be a successful businesswoman, or the threat of ending up a whore or a housewife. And that's the threat of this society. When really a housewife, this is a housewife, but really being a strong wife and bringing a beautiful child into the world and keeping a nice home for your husband whom you love. This is one of the most honourable things a woman can possibly do, is to find a man that she loves and to bring a beautiful child into the world, and together they can both build a strong home. And this is the threat of our society. If you don't do that, you'll become this. You're a whore or a housewife. So a housewife becomes unattractive, and you won't make it because you won't get a man, so you'll have to sell yourself. Either that or you've got to go out and rape society like a man would do it as a businesswoman. This is called being a strong woman. This is what our society has produced, this type of attitude, but it's a program. And this is what sort of women are taught, because they're given the princess program when they're at school, but it's all like Disneyland, and then they grow up and they get thrown into the world, and then they're given this ruthless business opportunity, or you'll end up on this trash heap. So they're led away from the beauty of the divine feminine, and the men in our society are led away from the beauty of the divine masculine. And they're pitted against each other through things like the family court and the legal system, which is designed to be completely unfair, so that the sexes are always clashing with each other, So it's a very, very clever program that they're running. I think, it's breaking down that in people. That's the hard thing, finding what it is. What is going to be the spark that unifies people? That's what we need. And that's what I believe this truth is. See, this truth, this movement that we're creating, it's got to be a movement that is not a movement. It's a movement that has no leaders. It's an idea whose time has come. It's where people rediscover themselves, where men rediscover the divine masculine, where women rediscover the divine feminine, and we learn how to bring it all together and realize that we're all in this together in Lakesh. That's the true growth in consciousness that we need, and that's what we're seeing. And for me, this has been a whole growth experience the whole way, and I'm still growing. I'm far from perfect. I'm still growing through all this. I mean, I make mistakes the same as everybody else does.
Yeah,
we all do. It's a learning process. We're so afraid of making mistakes in what we do, even with all of this truth investigation and this alternate media that we've become. We're still so scared of making mistakes. So many people want to get up there and say, well, I'm the one who's got all the authority. You should listen to me. But really, it's a big investigation that we're all going through, and everybody's got a piece of the puzzle. And we've got to be able to bring all this together and respect all the pieces and realize that it's an ongoing story. It's an ongoing growth. The evolution of consciousness, the rise in consciousness that's happening, it's a collective thing, and it's ongoing. And it's all about the experience on the way. So that's the thing with consciousness. A lot of people, they want something that, how can I flick the switch? How can you teach me to be self-enlightened? I say, well, it's self-enlightenment. So I can't teach you that.
Yeah. You can only show them the door, right? They have to walk through it.
Exactly, and it's about the journey. You don't suddenly become enlightened. Suddenly you find out that you've got this particular perspective and understanding, and you view the world in a different way than you did before, but you don't really know how you got there, and you realize that it was about the journey. The journey is the meaning of the whole thing. It's not about the destination. People want to get to enlightenment, but they don't want to make the journey to get there. But it's about the journey. The journey is the enlightenment. People need to pay attention to that, I think.
Oh, absolutely. It actually reminds me of a discussion I was having. I was having it tonight. I was teaching some of the kids and the youth that I work with in martial arts, and a lot of them are always very eager and anxious to receive their stripes and their promotions and to get that next belt and to get that prestige and that pride that's associated with it. And I always constantly remind them, and I say, look, I'm here teaching you what I know about this discipline. But that doesn't make me better or superior to you, even if I'm older than you. We are equals, but I've just been maybe on this particular journey in this discipline for a bit longer, so that's why I'm here. I'm here to show you that. And it's not about just achieving some pat on the back or some, just recognition or some badge or medal or whatever. It's about the journey, as you said, and you're exactly defining for me what this whole concept that I've been teaching is all about in martial arts, and that I've learned from great people as well. And that it's not about that. It's about the process that you had to go through, sort of the blood, sweat, and tears of reaching that stage. And then to also realize that you're never finished. You're never finished. No matter how long you do something, no matter how perfected you might get at that thing, there's always a way to go back and revisit it and learn to express yourself through it and to refine yourself through it. So I absolutely, recognize that, and I absolutely, support what you're saying there, Max. It's very, very crucial and very important, I think.
Well, it is, and also even with a belting system and a grading system like that, it's interesting the way these things are often structured. If you think about it, what I like about the Chinese language and even Arabic and some of this sort of stuff is that they write reverse to what we do. And with the Western system of grading, it's always like going up a ladder, isn't it? You climb to the top of the grade. So you are like an A grade person or a B grade person or a C grade person or a D grade person. You're higher on the grade. You know what I mean? It's a program. It's a program. You're feeling more elevated, more status because I'm higher on the rung. You know what I mean? I'm up another rung on the ladder, But really, if you could think of a grading system, really, if you wouldn't even call it a grading system, but if you could think of with your students when they're getting belts and they're going through their levels, if you could think of, okay, what this is about is you've reached, you now that you've reached this more level in this martial arts, you've reached this new ability, what you've really found is a new, more equilibrium. You're able to attain more equilibrium within yourself now between the spiritual and the physical. So you can think of this belt as, imagine we are building a bridge across a turbulent water, and we're able to get these planks to suspend in midair so we can take another step in the bridge that we're building for equilibrium across this river. You know, and each belt is like a plank in this bridge so we can take another step along our path. You know? Oh wow, yeah, so absolutely. If you could bring a grading system, a concept of grading into people's minds as that, even if you could do this with the scholastic system as well. Yeah. So it's building another plank for you to take another step in your path in life. It's not climbing up another rung on the ladder. But they don't want that, you see. They want you to think you're climbing up another rung on the ladder. So they do this. They superimpose this over everything, even the martial arts, even with any grading system. Yeah. Because when you're graded like that, it's always a vertical illusion in your mind. It's not another step on your path in life, is it? And if you can think of it that way, I think just that syntax, just that concept of grading is a far, far healthier way to look at things. Wow. Yeah, and that being said, like, you know, that is some wisdom that is missing in martial arts today. And speaking from experience in that field, that it's such a focus on, like you said, climbing up a ladder, and usually you got to step on some people in order to get up that next rung. And then it creates that mindset, especially in children. It creates a very competitive mindset, not like a healthy competition with your own self where you want to move to that next level. You know, you want to kind of push yourself and try to go back and refine it. It's not that. It's stepping over other people and looking down the aisle and saying, hey, I want to be better than that person. And it creates this envious attitude. And it's just really sad to see. But well, it does, and it perhaps that's something you could introduce. But even with that syntax and with that program, it runs very strong, because even with you said then you want to push yourself and take yourself to the next level, where really you want to take the next step and achieve the highest state of equilibrium within yourself. Well, and then you see the thing is, you know what I'm saying? No, so even when you know you the program runs deep in everybody. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah. I've seen it in myself. Like, I'm not immune to this. I grew up, and you accept what you're told, and you have teachers and people that you look up to, and they have a great deal of influence over you, and you want to prove yourself, and you want to do all of this, and then it can lead you further away from any kind of true path where you're moving forward instead of upward. And again, it just blinds you from the real purpose of the journey. So I very much when I go back and I read a lot of the writings and the teachings and the philosophy of a lot of the founders of these martial arts, and of course you could look at religion, you could look at many different things, but if you look at martial arts specifically, they wrote about this. They wrote about the fact that the whole focus is not at all about attaining some rank so that you can have authority over another human being and walk around like in this sort of haughty-like spirit. It's there for your spiritual progression. It's designed to be full circle. And I wish I could implement a system where it was just, you're a white belt and then you're a black belt, just so you can have some kind of measurement. But because of the fact that you're working in a world where the parents bring these children in and they look at it like the school system, like, oh, my kid has to be ahead of the grade. He's got to get a straight A. He's got to do all this, and they need to get their stripe. I get more flack from parents about whether or not their kid got graded than I do from the kids themselves. And I just find that to be very interesting. So again, it goes back to the parents being brainwashed by this system of merit and this system of moving up in these ranks that ends up influencing these kids. Well, yeah, and it completely detracts away from the whole philosophy of the martial art itself. Oh, totally. And it's insidious. See, they do this with everything. They superimpose a false reality over everything. Everything that they do, they hijack everything. I mean, like I said, if I'm talking about the fact that there shouldn't be any countries and we're all one species, open borders, he wants a one world government, So they hijack the whole thing, You hijack global unity into a new world order, So. And they hijack this system of progression. I mean, sure, you need markers along the way. That's why every belt could be seen as a new plank in a bridge that you're building towards further equilibrium, because each level that you attain in martial arts is further equilibrium with yourself and with reality around you, That's what it's about. You're only able to do the things that you can do as a master, someone like Bruce Lee, because he had this equilibrium. He had this. And an equilibrium, with your surroundings and with your health and with your body, spiritual, mental, is an important thing for people to have. And it's a great thing to attain to. But which doesn't say, equilibrium means that you're like a drone, like in the film Equilibrium, not allowed to have any emotion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course not. I mean, you should, of course, express your emotions. I believe always you should express your emotions. If you're an angry person or if you're angry with someone, express that anger. You don't have to hit them, but say your piece, have your say. You got to let it out.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you bottle it up, and that's not good at all. We've been taught that we shouldn't express our emotions. You shouldn't be sad. You shouldn't be angry. You should be just normal all the time. Don't be too happy, or we might think there's something wrong with you. but just be in this space. You can go between this line and this line. That's where you should be, and that's what we're taught. And I think that's a huge thing that's wrong with our society as well. That we're not able to express our emotions within our society. I think it's very important that you do. That's why I have no trouble doing so.
Yeah.
But all these sorts of things. I think measurements and a belt and a different. Here you are. Here's a symbol of your attainment of what you're able to achieve with your discipline is a good thing. It's just how they view that, whether they view it as a vertical thing or whether they view it as a horizontal thing. You can look at it that way. Whether they view it as a ladder or a bridge. It's a bridge is what it should be. It shouldn't be a ladder. It's a bridge because you're not trying to get higher or obtain any height or authority over anybody or anything else. You're attempting to obtain further equilibrium and further connection with reality in your path in life. You're taking another step, essentially. So that's the way it should be viewed. So, it's just how you view it, how you present these awards to people, and when they're achieving them, perhaps when you're teaching them, it's how you're presenting it to them, how you're presenting the lesson to them is what they are actually achieving with this lesson,
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've always tried to use the metaphor of this practice being really an expression of, first of all, expressing who you are uniquely through this art, and you could use any art, playing a guitar, writing a poem, painting a beautiful picture. This is just another way of expressing, and actually it's kind of geared towards helping to express those, what people call negative emotions, which aren't really negative. Those are emotions that we all have, and there has to be a healthy expression of that. And it's actually a science. There's a science behind it. So I always try to teach it in a way where it can be useful in all areas of people's lives. It's not just about learning how to, beat somebody up or just to defend yourself or just to get that six-pack or whatever. It's there and it's designed as one discipline of many that can help lead you to exactly what you're saying, Max, equilibrium. And man, I've heard more wisdom from you tonight on martial arts than I've heard from many different masters, especially when you get on YouTube and you see what's going on television, and now they've got all of the young men being sucked into this whole cage fighting, UFC, gladiatorial events, and just focus all of their energy on that. And then, of course, it ends up being one of the number one recruitment programs where they have like the U.S. Marines sponsoring these types of events, and it's just insane. It's a complete twist on the true philosophy of what this is supposed to really be about. So you see it everywhere. You see it it's like that quote, everything's backwards, everything's upside down, and it's only because we gotten placed out of balance. And then that being said, Max, we got about maybe 5 minutes left. Did you have any personal stories or anything like that you wanted to share about some of the steps on your journey where you were maybe at a certain space of being challenged or being confronted, whether it be externally or internally, and some of the methods that you've used to help get through that?
Well, my biggest source of strength has been my understanding of reality. And this is something that I've talked about on so many shows, knowing what I was talking about before, about how my body is simply a biological computer, that I'm just here for the experience. I'm just a frequency of consciousness, knowing that I'm perfect at what I do because no one can be me better than me, because no one else can have this experience. And when people can see that in themselves, that you're absolutely perfect because you're perfect at being you, because and you is what you're supposed to be, because that's who you are, obviously. So no one can do that better than you. So why would you consider yourself to be anything but perfect? It's not about all this stuff that you perceive you should be. It's about your experience here and what you do with it and what you do with the information that you gather and the legacy that you leave behind. Just understanding that basic understanding of reality is a huge source of strength for me. And I've been under massive attack lately, actually, from many people, calling me this and calling me that, and so you know you're making a difference when the shills come out and start attacking you.
Yeah.
So it's been it does sap your energy sometimes, but just understanding how reality works is a huge thing. And what I was talking about before with building bridges, I mean, if you can see this not just to martial arts, but as your whole life, everything that you do is putting another plank in that bridge, is taking another step in your path, in the art of your life. So we've been led away from the art of our life is the biggest problem. And don't be afraid to look at everything, and don't be afraid to make mistakes in what you do. Don't be afraid of how other people judge you for what you do. And anything that you've done wrong, any mistakes you've made, you can undo those by doing the right thing now. You can, because this whole society, it's psychopathic. You can't make it work to any degree of comfort unless you are basically behaving in a sociopathic manner, whether you believe you are or not. If you're running a business and you're putting profits before people, well, that is sociopathy in motion, whether you realize it or not. So we're forced to operate within these parameters. So you can't judge people for what they've done, and you can't judge yourself for what you've done, because you were never given an even playing field, no matter who you are or who they are. There are psychopaths that exist within the society. 2 to 3% of the population are born psychopaths. But unless you're a psychopath, you can undo any bad stuff you've done simply by doing the right thing now, because it doesn't matter what you did, it matters what you do. We all have the ability to change our lives, and we all have the ability to participate in this reality and bring about positive change for the future if we just choose to do so. Don't judge yourself because you were never given an even playing field. Just start stepping in the right direction now, and every single person on this planet can make a difference. We all can. It's just another step along the path, and you still have time to leave a beautiful legacy behind with the information that you've gathered during your life. So that's my message to the world out there. Don't give up hope. Don't think you're not making a difference, because you are. And don't think that you're not part of what's going on, this huge, big experiment that we're involved in, because we are all making history at every moment of every day, as long as we choose to participate.
Absolutely. Wow, I couldn't have said it better. And I would just say that I would agree that people should realize that they live in one of the most magnificent times in history, really. I mean, we've been facing corruption and evil and psychopaths and, destruction of the environment and destruction of culture. And we've faced it all throughout history when you study it. But we have a unique opportunity now because of these outlets that we have. I mean, look at the internet. It might have been set up by the military for purposes of surveillance and, control. And now you've got corporations that are there and they have easy access to you and et cetera. But we're using it now. We're taking that and we're using it for the purpose of spreading this information. And we can communicate this message right now. I mean, Max, here we are using Skype online, talking to people. People are listening in, and hopefully we've inspired at least one person out there. That was something that we might not have been able to do in the past. And so I think of it as, we've got, they're ramping up their agenda because the old system is trying to stay in control. It's only natural, really, if you think about it. But at the same time, we have this massive awakening taking place. And maybe, Max, you could finish with a couple comments on how you see that going. Do you feel optimistic about how many people that maybe you've seen in your life that are waking up now and trying to look at things in a different way, in a more rational way? How do you see that going?
Oh, yeah. Look, there's so many people becoming aware of what's going on now. It's really good to see people you wouldn't expect to be talking about it are. I think we can all make a difference. I mean, and I said on the last show, just question everything. Any single thing this government asks you to do, send them a letter back and ask them why you have to do it. Any bill they send you, question it. Anything. Just create paperwork for them. Do everything you can to clog up the workings of this machine. And don't participate in wars and all the stuff they want to do. Wake up to what's going on. America has to stop what their government's doing, because if they don't, they're going to be judged by the rest of the world. So just participate. Do everything you can to upset the apple cart and rock the boat. Connect with the people around you. Be supportive of everybody that you know, but don't be supportive of this system. Do everything you can to create flack for the system. I think that's a good thing. We need mass civil disobedience right across the planet. And I don't mean protest in the streets. just question authority at every single level that you can. Realise that nobody has any jurisdiction over you. These people are our employees, and we need to put the pyramid back up the right way with the people at the top and the government at the bottom.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said, Max. And we got a couple seconds here, and I just wanted to say before the show cuts us off that it's been a great privilege and an honor to speak with you. I am very grateful that you're able to take this time with us. So thanks for joining us.